This is Lesson 3 of Unit 5 in Algebra 1A. Our current unit is linear functions. We've looked at identifying linear functions, where we said the shape of a graph is a straight line, and we've calculated the slope. What we're going to look at today is writing equations for those straight lines, and the form that we're going to use is called slope-intercept form. So in today's lesson, we're going to learn how to write the slope-intercept form of a linear equation from a graph. We're going to graph an equation written in slope-intercept form, so we're kind of doing the opposite there. We're going to write an equation from a graph, and we're going to make a graph from an equation. And then the third thing we're going to do, we're going to write the slope-intercept form of a linear equation from a table. I'll probably split each of these into their own videos so that you can find each of them more specifically. So here we're going to learn how to write the slope-intercept form from a graph. Some key terms for us. First, we need to know the word slope. We said last time slope is the steepness of a line, how quickly it rises and falls. It's also called rise over run. Another part of slope-intercept is an intercept. That's where a line touches an axis. It's where those two cross. And finally, form, which we see in the title of our lesson here. Form is like a pattern for an equation. They can be written differently, but equivalent to each other. For example, if we're talking about slope-intercept form, it is y equals mx plus b. They will have different numbers for m and for b, because the m is the slope and the b is the y-intercept, and those things will be specific to the equation, but it's always going to follow this pattern if we're using slope-intercept form, right? Form is a pattern. This is one of the three forms we're going to learn for linear equations. And again, it shows us two things. It uses the slope and it uses the y-intercept, m and b. When we write an equation from a graph, we're going to need to find the slope. We're going to find the y-intercept. If we're finding that slope, we're looking for rise over run. If we're looking for the y-intercept, it's where it crosses the y-axis. We can also talk about this as a starting point for the y-intercept. We'll come back to that in just a moment. So some examples here. We're going to write the slope-intercept equation for the table or the graphs below. I want to start with that b value, that starting point. It is the y-intercept, which is right here. We have the y-axis, and that's where the line crosses. This is going to be a 3. If we count from the y-axis, or from the center, we go 1, 2, 3. So our y-intercept is a positive 3. What if I want to find the slope from a graph? How would I do that? Well, first things first, we need to find some pretty points on this graph that we can use. And then we're going to draw a triangle to connect them to find our rise over our run. In this case, we have a 2 on the right side that's going up, so it's a rise. And on the bottom, we have a run of 3. Again, run goes side to side on that triangle. We want to make sure when we draw those triangles, we follow the grid lines. So the slope, we're going to put the rise on top. That's going to be 2. And the run on bottom, that's 3. When we put this together, our form says y equals mx plus b, so we put the slope and the x together. They're going to be multiplied. And then we're going to add or potentially subtract the b value. Here, we're going to have y equals 2/3 x, because we put the slope in front of the x, plus 3. It'll be a plus because it's positive. Let's look at the next one. Again, I'm going to start with the y-intercept. We're looking at the y-axis and where those two meet. That gives us this point right here. That is at 2. So the y-intercept is 2. Now we'll find the slope. We can always use that y-intercept as one of our points. And then we're looking for pretty points along the way where our line crosses at the corner of a box. There are plenty to choose from. Just to keep things separate, I'm going to pick these two right here. We draw a triangle to connect them. The rise is going to be 2. The run is going to be 1. So if we write that slope down, we put a 2 over a 1. But we have to be careful writing our slopes because we should notice this line is going down. So it has a negative slope. We need to put that negative there in front. When we write our equation, I'm going to simplify this negative 2 over 1 to negative 2. We can do that by dividing the top and the bottom of the fraction. Then we have our x after the slope plus 2 because that y-intercept is positive. Let's do this last one quickly. We're looking for the y-intercept. That's down here. We're looking to find slope with pretty points. If I use those 2 points I just found, I draw a triangle to connect them, going along the lines. This side is 3. This side is 1. We're going to put the rise on top, so that's 3 over 1. And now that we've found the slope and we've found the y-intercept, we can just put them together to make the equation. 3 over 1 is the same as 3. We just divide that. X minus 1. This time we're using a minus 1 because of this negative sign on the y-intercept. We'll stop this video here. In the next video, we'll do the opposite. We'll use this equation to make the graph.